The moment Grandma stepped through the doorway, a stillness settled over the dinner table that felt heavier than the roasted chicken or the clatter of silverware. Her coat hung awkwardly on the chair beside the door, and for a fraction of a second she seemed older than the photographs in the hallway suggested. 18 years. 18 years without a phone call, without a letter that wasn't perfunctory, and now she was here, standing in the middle of the living room as if she had never left. "Why are you still renting?" she asked, voice steady, sharp but not shrill. "What happened to the studio we put in your name?" Her eyes, fixed on Mom, were searching, not just for an answer, but for confirmation that the past hadn't been ignored. Mom smiled. Not the kind of smile that sought to disarm, but one that quietly signaled authority. "That place belongs to JAXON now." Grandma froze for the briefest second, as if the words had rebounded against her chest. Then she rose, slower than usual, and leaned slightly toward the door. "Open the door," she said, quieter this time, "and you'll see." I remember the way my hands pressed against the edge of the table, almost needing something to hold on to as the room contracted around her presence. It wasn't fear exactly, it was the weight of all those years, the unspoken assumptions, the silent void where she should have been. Mom nodded toward the hallway, her eyes meeting mine for a second. No words were exchanged, but the unspoken message was clear. Follow and watch how this plays out. I turned the knob, slowly, deliberately, hearing the soft scrape of metal against metal, and pushed the door open. The studio was immaculate, almost clinical in its order. Jackson's work filled the shelves, photographs, sketches, small sculptures, evidence of a life built quietly, intentionally, in the gaps left behind by absence. The air smelled faintly of paint and wood polish, not of neglect. Grandma stepped inside, her eyes tracing the lines of shelves, the careful stacking of notebooks, the framed prints on the wall. No words escaped her lips for a long moment. I could feel the quiet of history, of decisions made without her consultation, settling over us all. Is this really his?" she finally whispered, almost to herself. There was a pause, a subtle inhalation, the recognition of what had been accomplished without her orchestration. Mom stood just behind her, hands folded, steady. Yes, he earned it. He made it his. Grandma's gaze shifted to me. I could see the reflection of that old disappointment, softened by surprise, perhaps even pride, though unspoken. The silence was thick, but it wasn't oppressive. It was contemplative, a rare moment of realignment. I thought of the afternoons she used to spend here when I was younger, the short lessons in drawing and geometry, the vague promises about futures that never materialized as she imagined. And yet, despite the void of her absence, something had taken root, something had grown. 18 years, she murmured. Not a question, not an accusation, just a recognition of the passage of time, of choices made, of lives lived. Mom nodded again, this time without speaking. The room felt smaller, or maybe it was just that the weight of old authority had softened. No one moved to close the door immediately. None of us wanted to break the fragile quiet that had descended. Grandma lingered near the center of the studio. I could see her eyes soften as they traced the evidence of accomplishment, the meticulous care in every placement, the unmistakable signs of someone's independent growth, not hers, not ours, Jackson's. Finally, she turned back toward the doorway. I didn't realize." Her voice cracked slightly, almost imperceptibly, and then she cleared it. "You've all done well." Mom's lips curved at that same quiet smile, the one that had guided us through so many unspoken battles and reconciliations. "We managed," she said simply. "No fanfare, no theatrics." Grandma nodded once and stepped out. The door clicked softly behind her, leaving the faint echo of her presence in the hall. The weight of the evening didn't evaporate entirely, but it shifted, as if some balance had been restored, quietly, without celebration or spectacle. Dinner resumed, muted but less strained. The clatter of forks and plates seemed to carry a new rhythm, one shaped by recognition rather than confrontation. We ate in silence for a while, each of us lost in thought, considering the subtle shifts, the long shadows of absence, and the unexpected presence of respect quietly reclaimed. By the time dessert was cleared, no one mentioned the studio again. It had spoken for itself. And perhaps that was enough. Perhaps that was all any of us needed. The gaps remained, yes, the fractures from years apart, but for now there was a fragile equilibrium. Not triumph, not reconciliation fully realized, just the calm acknowledgement that life had moved forward, and that. Some victories are measured not in noise, but in the quiet evidence of survival and care. 18 years had passed, and in that quiet, the past and present met, not in applause or confrontation, but in the subtle recognition of what had been built against the odds, quietly and irrevocably.